Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. It's Tori, and today we are doing episode 42 of Motley Crew Chats, which is one of my favorite things to do on my channel. And you guys, this Motley Crew Chat, we have fought through fire and flood
and destruction
and like
cancels and reschedules.
It's been ridiculous. Like, the universe was really like, do we want this conversation to happen? I don't know.
it was going to be too epic to behold, apparently.
I think like two very nerdy and obsessed Malazan fans in one space does scare the powers that be a little bit.
I think so, yes, definitely.
Yeah, which as it should, you know. But yeah, so we're finally here, which is wild. And I kept all day, I was just waiting. I was like, something's gonna happen.
I know. I was waiting for that too. I was like waiting in like my plane to Boston. I'm like, it would be just our luck that it would be canceled again. I told my friends, because when I was traveling with my girls, like I was like, I have to go back. I have a friend who's waiting for me. We've been planning it for months. I can't cancel on her again.
I think we've rescheduled like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, it was an insane amount of times.
Yeah, and it was the most random stuff. It was so weird. But we're here finally, and I am thrilled to finally get to introduce on my channel Francisca Liliana, who is the author of the beautiful book 1 of The Breaths and the Depths duology, Isla's Reach, and also a reviewer and also Malazan super fan. Like, if you guys aren't following her Instagram, I love your stories, crack me up, because every like couple of days I wake up and there's a picture of some random like skyscraper or building, and there's just a cutout like Malazan dragon that you've pasted over. It's just lovely, and I love that. So thank you for the work that you do.
You're most welcome. I get a lot of people who will message me and say, I go on my stories and just like press just to be scared, because they'll be like, oh.
Yeah. And with Malazan as a kind of Wikipedia for anything that you can put on your stories, there's a lot of opportunities for people to be scared there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Scary things. We do, Chris. We are going to, so anybody in the chat, I know this is probably going to surprise everyone, but we are going to talk about Malazan at some point. And one of the things that I want to say is I know a lot of people that are big fans of Malazan in my circle, and that's awesome, because you can never have too much Malazan, in my opinion. However, Francisca literally has read, I think at this point, everything.
I have all of it.
Everything, you guys. And that's what, like 20 something, 27 books?
I think it's 26, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm counting the short stories as well, I think it's 26. I could be wrong, but I think it is.
Like that, do you feel the accomplishment of that? Because you should.
I do feel pretty proud of it. I want to be the like oracle, the Malazan oracle. I want to be the Malazan scholar. Like I love it. Want to have like that Indiana Jones brain like downloaded of Malazan. Yeah. So yeah, and I'm currently like rereading the series now. I'm on Dead House Gates right now, so I'm starting at the very beginning again, because I just obviously I'm crazy. So
I mean, I feel like though, and this is something that a lot of Malazan fans talk about. It's just, there's something very special about the world, and once you're in it, it's like you've never read anything else like it, and it like pulls you back in every time you try to like walk out. It's like, no.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy how like there are books that you like really enjoy, and there are books that are you want to word vomit to other people, and then there are the books that like change you as a person. And I feel like Malazan really changed me as a person. Like just reading that whole thing. Like I don't remember the Francesca who I was before Malazan. I only remember the after. So,
and should we be concerned by that?
I don't know.
Yeah. It was funny because, and as another Malazan fan, you'll understand this, but the other day, I was in a reading slump and I was really frustrated and just was like looking at my shelves. I'm like, I don't know. I don't feel like reading anything. And I'm really frustrated. And I feel really like reading slumpish, but I don't want to just not read. I want to read something. It's like, what I need as a comfort read? I'm going to keep going on Malazan. And so I pick up House of Chains as my like get out of a reading slump comfort read. And the scarier part of that is it's working.
Like, odd. That's
it is
really,
very
really
odd.
It's kind of like saying like, you pick up a Robin Hobb book for the feel goods. You're like, oh, I want to feel good. And then you end up like just hating everything. But like, it really is like when I finished Malazan, I was reading it with my buddy Nelly. And when we finished it, we were both like, we feel like we have like said goodbye to a friend almost, like but not like a friend who like moved across states, who like we can't visit all the time anymore. We have to like FaceTime her, like we can only see them every once in a while now, and it just felt like so sad having finished that.
yeah Well, I want to talk about characters that have left an impact on both of us. And for everybody in the chat who's panicking about spoilers, we are going to keep it spoiler free. We'll kind of, as we were saying backstage, we'll do the wink nudge kind of talking about characters where we'll know, but if you haven't read the series, you won't, because it's exclusive like that. So read the series. Yes. But one of the things I wanted to say really quickly, I want to say hi to some people in the chat and let you guys know before I forget, because I always forget, down in the description box below, there is a link to Francesca's card and all of her information, her website, her Instagram, all of those things. Her Instagram is beautiful, you guys. We're going to dig into that in a little bit because I'm so intimidated by Instagram, to be honest. I've been a YouTube creator for 5 years and I feel finally pretty confident here. I go on Instagram and I'm like, I read a book. Like, I'm just so bad.
It was a book I read.
Yeah, I can drop a 40-minute book review, no problem, and then go on Instagram and be like, I don't know what to say.
See, I have the opposite reaction. Like when I'm trying to I'm trying to try my hand at reels. I'm not very good at it, but like I get so like frazzled when I'm in front of like the reel, but like when I try to write it out on Instagram, it's like the word count does not have enough for my word vomit. But then I'm like, but then I have like this 6-minute reel that like I can't do anything with.
I mean, a lot of us would watch it.
Yeah, so I try, but I get very intimidated by the opposite, where like in front of a camera, whereas like when I'm just doing like a post of like a picture, it's like, okay, it's not on me, so that's fine.
Well, and the other thing I love about Instagram too is that like I can just roll out of bed in the morning and still be in my pajamas with my hair a big mess and just post a picture of a book on Instagram and nobody knows.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is great.
The amount of pictures that I've posted where I wasn't wearing pants.
Yeah.
So many.
That's fair. Because Instagram is very forgiving like that. YouTube, not so much.
Yeah. No, not YouTube.
Yeah. Kay is here. Hi, Kay. Peter's here, Brian's here, all sorts of hooligans in the chat. We love to see it. I think this is referring to us trying to get our chat going, which I completely agree with. And the thing is, we've been kind of like chatting back and forth a little bit for probably 2 years.
Yeah, like we do have like a back and forth. It's just like kind of like spaced out a bit, you know?
Yeah. I feel like this conversation probably is about 1.5 to 2 years overdue.
It is. It truly is. Yes.
Yes. The power of the Motley crew was more powerful than whatever was trying to keep us from having this conversation.
Some crossed Warrens or something was in play here.
Definitely. Quick Ben.
Truly, probably Quick Ben.
Just if we're gonna blame somebody.
Yes.
Hi, Sam. Isla's Reach immediately added to my basket. The cover is, yes. Let's just have a moment for Felix Ortiz and his beautiful work on this cover, because
he's amazing.
He's amazing. And like, so I don't know if I'd go so far as to call myself a dragon skeptic. However, I'm not as big of a dragon person as a lot of fantasy fans tend to be. We're going to talk about dragons in a little bit, because I really liked the dragons in this book a lot. And that was one of my favorite aspects of the book, which honestly is one of the biggest compliments I can give you, because usually I'm like, okay, dragons, cool. Except for Malazan, of course. But this, like, I love the way that you wrote the dragons. And to me, there's like, we're going to get into that in a little bit, where there's some art to that, I feel like. So yeah, Peter, I hope you enjoy. Let's see. And yeah, everybody, there's links down in the description box, again, if you just joined us. Sam wants to know, but has she read the Willful Child parody novels by Steven Erikson?
So I know about them, and I do want to read them. I just haven't yet, but yeah, well, I do know about them. And yeah. I think Erikson also, like, he hasn't written a lot outside of Malazan. I think that's one of the only series that he has, but I know he recently posted on his Facebook that he came to a deal with like Subpress, I think. Yeah. And then he is releasing another book, and it doesn't have anything to do with Malazan. So I'm very interested in that. So I want to know what that's all about.
Because he didn't even really say what like genre or...
No, he didn't say what genre it was at all. So it could be sci-fi, it could be fantasy. I would love to see what type of other fantasy he's got roiling around in his brain.
Yeah, and it would be interesting, because Malazan is so epic in scope and there's so much there. Like, I would imagine it would be really hard, especially after spending so much time in it, to be able to write something completely separate that isn't like heavily influenced by all of that experience. So I have no idea. Yeah, but he did post about it. I saw that. I had a couple people send me, did you see Steven Erikson posted?
I know. I had a bunch of people send it to me too.
You know you're a Malazan fan when.
I know, yeah. And I posted it on my story, and then I had quite a few people comment and say, like, I saw this on somebody else's story and I immediately thought of you. And I'm like, I love that word association. Love that. That's great.
Peter wants to know, what are your thoughts on how do you say that?
Carcanis?
Carcanis. That's what I thought.
Oh, I love Carcanis.
It's dark, isn't it?
It is very dark. It is like, it is Shakespearean on steroids. Like, it is just, it is so tragic. Everything that is happening in there is so tragic. And the thing is that once you've read all the 10 books, like, you kind of know the history and the backstory of what's going on in Carcanis. So you kind of like, you already know how the story ends. You just don't know like all of the bits in between that are happening and how we get to point. Like, we know point C, we just don't know like how point A and B connects to point C. Yeah.
Sure.
And Carcanis builds that bridge, and it also builds on the world as well. There are a lot of new magical elements that are happening in Carcanis that are very interesting to the world itself. And I loved seeing how it's basically a creation story. It's crazy. I love Carcanis. I think it's some of Erikson's best work, especially the first one. I really love the first one.
Wow, that's pretty high praise.
Yeah, it's great. I think that if you really like, it's been told mostly as like it's the Tistandi backstory, but it is a lot more than that. There's so much more backstory happening. There, like, things that I did not realize were going to be told were being told, and I didn't realize how like far back we were going, like thousands of years. And it was just so very interesting being in some of the brain being in some of the brains of like characters that we've known from the Malazan series and their relationships to one another. And it's just such an incredible series. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm more excited, I think, for A Walk in Shadow than I am for the second book in the Witness series that Erickson is coming out with soon. I really, really love the Carcanis trilogy.
So that, because that's the final book, right?
Yeah, Walk in Shadow is going to be the final one. And I think he just recently posted as well that he's still working on it and that it should be coming out either at the end of this year or sometime next year.
Okay, so not too much longer then.
Yeah. If you can get through some of like in book one, there's a lot of, because it's the Tistandi, there's a lot of philosophical ruminations because that's who the Tistandi are. If you do not like philosophical ruminations,
they're brooders.
You probably do. They are such brooders. They think and think and think and think. So this is a Tistandi book. I know I just said that there's more than that, but it is essentially like a Tistandi book. Yeah. So if you don't know the Tistandi, you don't understand that they're going to have all those philosophical ruminations. So it can get a little bit like long-winded in that, especially in the book 2. Book 1, I think, had better pacing with it, but book 2 is a little bit like, okay, we're going on this a little bit too long, but that's okay. And that's probably my only complaint about the book. But like it's a great series. Yeah, I love it.
Nice.
Sorry, that was so much word vomit.
No, that's totally fine. That's why we do the chats, because like people that are watching my channel, they know what I think about things. I'm not that interesting anymore. So like you're just providing fresh content.
Perfect.
Like everybody's got their bingo cards and they're waiting for me to do my gush fest about Dead House Gates at some point in this conversation, which probably will happen. Yes. You know, it's my favorite fantasy novel of all time. So yeah, I talk about it on my channel probably. No, I mean, it's not too much, but it's a lot.
Yeah, as it should be.
And for all of the crashing in the background a minute ago, I'm so sorry. My cat can open doors, and he was upset that I shut him out of the room, and he was breaking in, and now he's in, so we're good. It's always, you know, cats are always very entertaining, and now he's just sitting on my bed. What?
You got to let them do what they're going to do, because they have the run of the house.
It's true. Jeffrey says, I love the Malazan memes from Francisca as well. Hey, Andrew. Zeely's here. See, you know what's funny about this is I was very nervous about rereading House of Chains. I really was. Because I wouldn't say it's my least favorite of the first 4, but it's like I don't like a certain character in House of Chains that a lot of other people really love. I like the arc of that character.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're not. Anyways, it's a lot.
Yes.
And I think rereading it this time, going into it and like knowing the full story and seeing, like knowing what I'm in for really changed the way, like for a first read, totally agree. Like I had a hard time with it the first time I read it as well. This time, because I know where I'm going through the rest of the book, that is definitely helping.
Yeah.
But
I can totally understand that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not fun.
No, there are so many elements in Malazan where you're like, this is not fun to read.
Yeah.
This sucks. It's terrible. Is it amazing writing? Yeah. Is it good? Is it good? Like plot wise, is it keeping me interested? Yeah. Like this is good, like storytelling, but am I enjoying this currently? No, not in the least bit.
Yep, exactly. K2 says, if we had a drinking game where we took a shot every time someone said Malazan in the stream, it would be deadly. Agreed. Yeah, correct. That would be hilarious, though. Please drink responsibly.
Please.
Chris says he's got Isla's Reach on his shelf.
Oh, nice.
Okay, I just want to make sure I haven't. Totally agree. Felix still is putting out amazing artwork. Hey, Pete. Let's see. Carcanis is definitely Erickson's best writing. Fall of Light was a lot of effort, though. Yeah, I can see that. Hi, Derry. I don't know what bingo we hit, but I'm sure there's been a lot of them already.
Yeah.
Dead House Gates has at least 2 to 3 squares on Tori's bingo card. It's true. It's true. Because it's not just the book. It's like individual characters within the book that I talk about constantly.
Yeah.
You know, it's fine. Okay, so I have to ask, because you've read all of them. Out of everything, do you have a favorite Malazan book?
I do. I fear that my favorite is not very, it's not going to be anything that is not said before. I feel like this is probably a lot of people's favorite, but Memories of Ice.
Yeah.
I love Memories of Ice. That is probably the most perfect book I've ever read in my life. My favorite book in all of fantasy ever written. Just I can't get enough of that book. Sometimes I think that Dead House Gates is my favorite, but like I always come back to Memories of Ice. That one just like I don't know who I was the entire time I was reading that book. I was feral. I just like could not like.
There's a lot in that book.
My bearings. I felt like I needed to be on like a breathing machine the entire time I was reading that book.
Yeah.
The anxiety was unreal.
I believe it. It has been at least 12 years since I read Memories of Ice the first time. And I remember, I mean, at the time I was like an absolute like child in epic fantasy. Like I had only read 2 epic adult fantasy books before I read Gardens of the Moon, which I had no idea what kind of an ambitious journey I was embarking on at that point.
Yeah, oh my gosh, what a journey to go on.
It was wild. And I didn't have, like, I wasn't tied into a book community or a fantasy community at all. So I read the first 4 books completely outside of anyone else's opinion, which I actually really appreciate now.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it.
It is, yeah. And now, like, going back and rereading all of that, I remember like the hangover that I had after Dead House Gates and Memories of Ice the first time, where I just was like, how do you go on?
I was thinking to myself, how do I call into work and tell them that I've lost family members? Like, right? Like how do I get on bereavement? How do I get on bereavement for fictional characters?
Should be a thing. I mean, it shouldn't, but it should.
Yeah, especially after, like, I would say that, like, Memories of Ice is my favorite book, but I would say that Dead House Gates has the biggest emotional impact, in my opinion. Like, the ending for Dead House Gates is the best, like, of the whole series, in my opinion.
She's speaking my language, guys.
I like I said, sometimes I think that Dead House Gates is my favorite book, but I always go back to Memories of Ice. But like Dead House Gates is like
yeah, S tier for sure.
Right there. Yeah.
Peter says the Mybe plotline in that, it's so true, and especially now. The first time I read it, I was not a parent.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, like I can't
even now as a parent, like I was a mess. Like, and that's one of the things I think it's such a encouragement to reread your favorite books, because I think as we go through different phases in life, like we're gonna relate to the book and the story and the characters differently, and it's gonna just enrich that experience so much because you're gonna add layers to it as you get older and experience more things. So yeah, I highly recommend rereading your favorite books. I think it's a great practice.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I also really love the Mybe's plot line. I didn't I'm not a parent, but like I've never read a book where reading a certain character's POV caused me physical pain. Like my chest would hurt. when I would read the My Beast storyline. And there's a character in not Dead House Gates, in Midnight Tides that does the same thing to me, where I am like dying inside every single time I get this character's POV.
We love that.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I'm so excited. My goal was to get at least to Midnight Tides, potentially to Bone Hunters this year. That's my goal. And I can't wait. I'm very nervous to read new Malazan after so long.
Yeah.
But I'm also I feel like I'm finally ready. Like all I could handle in my brain for the first 10 years of knowing Malazan was the first 4 books. That was it. Like that was tapped out for me.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
So much.
So on that vein though, and I wanted to ask you this specifically because as somebody who's read all of the books in the Malazan universe at this point, one of the things that people talk about on BookTube all the time on all the social media platforms is there's a lot of, I feel like, trepidation about Malazan, especially from people that are trying to, read a bunch of the really big series that they haven't gotten to yet. And they look at Malazan and they're like, yeah, I'm going to read that someday. And it's kind of scary. And it looks, everybody says it's super complicated. And like, what advice would you give to people who are just starting the series or haven't, or maybe a little nervous about if it's too much for them? Because I get that question all the time.
Yeah. So my advice is to just go with the flow is my biggest advice is do not expect yourself to know everything. You won't. You're not going to. Don't try. Just go with the characters, flow with them. Eventually, you're going to get to know them. You're going to figure out which ones you have to pay attention to, which ones are the side characters. It will fall into place, I promise. You just have to, I think people hold themselves too high of a standard to know everything when they first start reading. They're already starting to take notes, or they're already starting to get confused about things, and I'm like, you're supposed to be confused. This part is confusing because this part's not going to be explained until book 4. So every time that someone tells me that they are too they're scared or they don't know exactly what to do, just go in, read, and don't expect yourself to know everything. Just enjoy the characters, enjoy the world, enjoy the fight sequences and the witty banter between the characters, because a lot of what we hear about Malazan is this insane complex world that is almost that is almost unreadable. It is so complicated, but that is not the whole of Malazan. I wish I had known more when I first started reading. Why did nobody talk to me about these characters? These characters are some of the most real characters I've ever read in my life. The arcs, the witty banter between the two, I love the dialogue in these books, the way that people talk to each other and the way that the magic system works and all the races and all of that. That's so cool. It's not just about the rules. It's about the experience, because Malazan is an experience. So I always recommend for people to just go with the flow. That's the easiest thing that you could do. And then if you're really wanting to if you are one of those people that really want to dive into it and really want to understand more than just, just casually reading or anything, there's so many resources online. There's the Tor read-alongs are a fantastic resource. I loved those when I was first starting to read Malazan, because it breaks down the chapters scene by scene, and you're reading it with the people who were reading along with it. So there are no spoilers. You can just read it along with these people. So those there's a bunch of different types of read along resources that you can find online to just keep it all organized for you if you really need that. But just go with the flow. And it's always I also do recommend, if you can and if you want, read it with someone, so that way you can bounce off theories with each other and be able to not understand it together, so you don't feel like you're crazy.
Me too.
Do you know what this means? No. Okay, cool, we're good.
Great. Okay, just want to make sure it wasn't just me.
Exactly. So I think that is probably two of my biggest advices is to go with the flow, and if you can, read it with someone because it would make it that much more fun, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, you know, having a online book community at our fingertips has been such a beautiful gift in so many ways, because for a lot of us, like, we either grew up as the nerd in our circle of friends, or like, you know, didn't have a lot of people around us who were reading the same kind of books or interested in the same kind of stories we were. So in that way, it's like this giant gathering of nerds that all know the language that we're all speaking, which is great. But I also think in some ways we've kind of lost the ability. Like when I was a kid, I remember going to the library and you'd look at a book and you'd read the synopsis and be like, wow, that sounds really good. I want to read that. And we've kind of lost some of that, I feel like, because we know everybody's opinions on everything now.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
So I always tell people, like, treat Malazan like a book that you saw on the library shelf and you're like, oh, that kind of sounds interesting. It's like a big epic fantasy and there's like all these cool things, all these cool races, and just start reading and like, see where it goes. If you absolutely hate it, fine. But like,
exactly,
just read it like any other book you'd pull off the shelf, and don't, like, I think oftentimes fandoms can do a huge disservice to their series because they because they forget what it's like to be at the beginning, you know?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I really appreciate when, like, I love the advice, because it's the same thing I would say with Malazan. I've only read 4 books, where it's like, just read it. Like, it's fine. If you need help, it's out there. If you don't, just enjoy the ride. So
yeah. And I don't know about other Malazan fans, but I feel like people who love Malazan love to talk about it. So if absolutely. You like, I will talk about it with literally anybody. So like anybody who wants to talk to me about it and like, I'm confused on this, I got you. Like, come talk to me. I will help you.
Down in the description box below, there are links to all of Francisca's socials. So if you're confused while reading Malazan, you have a mentor.
I will be that person.
I want
to be the scholar.
Imperial historian of your very own.
I love that so much.
The amount of like Malazan nerd inside jokes back and forth while we're trying to set up this Motley crew chat was so much fun.
Love it.
It was great. Okay, hold on. I want to check on the chat because there's a few people that have been, more than a few people. This is the hardest part of BookTube, honestly, is trying to keep up with all the comments. Sam says, more praise for rereading, please. I support this. I agree. We don't talk about rereading enough on the book platforms, I think.
Yes.
Everyone should. That's the other thing. So Malazan is obviously one of the ones you're probably most known for, but you're also a big Hobb fan.
Yeah, I've read all of the entire Realm of the Elderlings. I've read all of them. Yeah.
So you actually like start something and finish it, which is probably the most impressive thing about this.
The thing is that when I find an author that I really, really love, I don't read it until my heart's like content. I read every single word they've written until I hate myself. So like,
sounds healthy.
Before Malazan, before I started Malazan, I was reading Hobb, and I read literally almost nothing but Hobb, and finished that and was like, okay, I need my next big series, and my next big series was Malazan. So like, and then that just took over my life. But yeah, I try to finish everything that I can from an author that I like found and really love.
Yeah. So out of everything, I'll ask the same question. Out of everything Hobb that you've read, what is like your quintessential Hobb book?
Ooh, oh gosh. It's really hard for me to.
For Gary's sake, as much as mine, because she's gonna be dying to know.
Oh man. Okay. I really love Royal Assassin. That's like almost a perfect book, but I also really love Fool's Fate. I like to rate my favorite books on how much they hurt me. And like,
I feel like that's very common.
Which one hurt me the most? Probably Fool's Fate. I was like an incoherent mess after that book.
More time off from work.
But Royal Assassin was also like chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Hurt me so good. I think both of those. I probably Fool's Fate is probably my favorite from Hobb. Yeah.
Derry. So Derry is our, have you met Derry before?
I don't think so.
Derry is our resident like Hobb queen on BookTube. Like she has reread these books. Some of her Hobb reads, it's like in the 25, 26 times she's read these books.
Oh, that's awesome.
She knows everything. But she wants to know why you guys aren't friends already.
Well, come talk to me.
You'll have to message her, Derry. Let's see. Yeah, Britton just started his Malazan journey with Gardens of the Moon, I think the last couple of days, right, Britton? And hasn't been that confusing so far, though. I can see why some people would say that. Yeah, he does. Absolutely. You get no life raft.
Well, when I was rereading Gardens of the Moon, I was genuinely shooketh by the amount of nothing that Erikson explains to you. He really does just throws you into the world with absolutely no explanations whatsoever. I know we had talked before we went on live that like rereading Malazan, like you don't have to. Like it's not like absolutely necessary, but it's still like really, really fun, to catch all of the things you didn't catch before. But when I was rereading Gardens of the Moon, I was like, oh my gosh, it is an absolute miracle that I got through this book because I knew nothing. Yeah. And then reading and now that I have all of the Malazan knowledge, I can I really know what's being spoken about. And I'm like, I did not catch that at all.
At all. No.
It just kind of makes you more in awe of Erikson's brain, because you're like, how did he think about this in book
and
one?
That far ahead too.
Book one. And there's stuff in there from the Witness series that I'm like, what? How?
Yeah. So I mean, segueing from that, because I think, with both of us being epic fantasy writers too, I'm consistently in awe of Erikson as a reader first, but as a writer also, because
oh my gosh, yeah,
trying to understand how he and Ian Eslamont keep track of all of the things. And I know he's mentioned that they have a pretty massive story Bible, which does not surprise me at all.
Yeah.
But so kind of shifting into your writing a little bit, what, when we sit down to write an epic fantasy of any kind, whether it's a standalone duology series, whatever, where do you start? Because there's so much to build when you're creating a world from scratch, and all of these characters and all of these intersecting threads. How do you keep that straight when you're working on the duology?
So how I how I keep my world building straight and the
what's
plot lines
your
and stuff.
Yeah.
But I already know my characters' endings before I and that makes a really big difference when I already know the characters' endings. But I plot-wise, I have a whole list of things on my phone, on my my notes of don't
I love
this.
It, me too.
Don't forget this. Don't forget this. Or I'll go back and edit a chapter and I'm like, ooh, I need to change that because that's not right. And then I have a list of things I need to change. Change this and change this and stuff. So it's not I'm sure it's not as easy as that, I guess. It's just kind of I kind of make it up as I go.
To some degree, yeah. I mean,
and then I fix it later.
If you take all the flexibility out of it, I feel like it's not fun, because we're discovering the world in some ways as we're writing it too. But you can have the most intense plot outline and still get to a point where you're I just got to write this and feel it out. I don't, I got to kind of see organically where this goes and how that changes things, and then you can throw your outline out and write it again.
Yeah, I'm somewhere in the I'm not quite a pantser, but I'm not also quite a planner. I'm somewhere in the
Mhm.
middle where like
Yeah.
I know major plot points that I want to get to, but everything
Mhm.
in the middle from point A to point B is like
Yeah.
I make it up as I go. Like I don't have
Yeah.
any kind of like plan for it at all, and so it just kind of
Yeah.
happens as I'm writing.
Yeah.
And then if I need to go back and change anything, then I go back and change it. But most of it is just kind of off the cuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, one of the ways that I feel like that helps me when, because I'm kind of similar in that way, is that life is like that. Like,
Hmm.
I don't want it to feel like, you know, the characters know where we're going, the reader knows exactly where we're going. Like, I want it to feel like life, which is sometimes unpredictable, and we find out when we get there. Like, I know the master plan, big vision picture, but
Hmm.
everything in between there is kind of like, well, let's see let's throw our characters and see here and just see what happens.
Exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. What can I put them through today?
Exactly. Yeah. I love when I was talking to Fonda Lee last year, we were talking about that, and she made the comment, like, whenever her readers come to her and are like, I cannot believe, like, do you know how much this hurt me? And she's like, I promise you, it hurt me first, and it hurt me worse than it hurt you.
Yep.
It's like,
Yeah.
true. Yep.
Yeah. I didn't think I would be one of those like someone who would cry at their own writing, but I definitely cried when I was writing book one.
Yeah. I think it just goes to show, like, the emotional investment of an author hopefully
Yeah,
translates to the emotional investment to the readers as well, and like we're putting into it what we want other people to take out of it as well. So yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, crying at your own writing is, I think there's a very, that's an important ingredient to some degree for
Yeah,
certain books.
yes, it has to start with the author's tears before it can start with before it can move on to the readers.
True, it's true. Okay, I just want to make sure, Britain, you should also read Men at Arms, by the way. There's another bingo card for everybody. Tori bingo card is Terry Pratchett. Everybody should read City Watch.
Mm.
um, okay. Sarah Beth says, finally got new bookshelves. Now I have to figure out which box my Malazan books are in so I can continue. Yep. Got to start with those. Yeah, this is something that Erickson actually has said, talking about writing before, where, you know, he mentions that not every single plot thread has to end in a nice little bow, because that's not how
Hmm.
life is. So, I mean, having read all of the books, do you feel like he embodies that in his writing?
I do. Yeah. Not necessarily that he leaves any like threads just drifting in the ether,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's more like just because just because you're a good person doesn't mean you're going to get a good ending. Does
yeah, yep.
It's
Like,
more like not everybody who deserves good things gets good things, and not everybody who does bad things, you know, gets their comeuppance kind of thing. Very much like life. A
yeah,
lot of the something that I really do enjoy about Malazan is how there are there are few heroes, and
hmm,
there are even fewer true villains. Um,
yeah, yeah,
it is kind of crazy how Erickson is able to spin a character who you dislike, and you actually end up kind of sort of understanding their motivations and understanding where they're coming from. And even
yeah,
if you do like viscerally hate a person, there is a character in Malazan that I hate with every fiber of my being. And this character still is walking around, and I'm so mad about it.
not
Because
satisfied.
so many of my favorite characters are dead, and this stupid character
It's
is
still
still
there.
alive and breathing, and I am pissed about it.
Yeah, I have no, that's one of the reasons, many reasons why I was nervous to continue, because I'm like, but see, I've known what happens in the first four books for like 12 years, and I'm now going into Malazan books where I don't know what happens, and that's terrifying.
It is. Yeah, it
It
is.
really
You
is.
just never know what's gonna happen.
Okay, hold on. I know I got a couple of questions. Um, This is actually a really interesting question, Britton. So I feel like we could both answer this. Devil's advocate, but if that's the case, why introduce set elements in the story? So if you're just going to kind of leave the plot threads like not tied up in a neat bow at the end, why even introduce them?
So I think that this is a common misconception with Malazan because most people read the first 10 books and then don't continue with the series. A lot of the loose plot threads that are in Malazan Book of the Fallen are tied up in Ice's books, and not a lot of people continue into Ice's books.
Right.
And so those plot threads that are kind of hanging on by the thread that are in Erikson's world are picked up again when you read Esselman. And their stories are continued because I believe it's the novels of the Malazan Empire that are happening at the same time as Malazan Book of the Fallen. So events that are just mentioned in Malazan Book of the Fallen, they're not very talked about, or characters that just kind of show up ex machina and save the day kind of and then disappear again. You see them again in the Ice books. So like it's I think that's a common misconception with Malazan, is that there are these loose plot threads, and I'm not saying that they're like Erikson is perfect or anything like that, or like he doesn't like mess up with plot threads or anything, but a lot of them are picked up in later books.
Yeah. I think from my perspective as too, like with writing, I read a book recently, and it's actually a book that Britton recommended to me, so he'll know what I'm talking about. But at the very end, there's 3 characters that go on kind of an adventure of sorts together, and at the very end, one of the characters is trying to find those characters again after a long time has passed between the major events of the story, and they find out that one of the 2 characters they're searching for don't know where they went, don't know what happened to them, and that's the way the story ends. And I actually appreciated that, because I think sometimes those kind of kind of, not, I hesitate even saying them a loose plot thread, because it's really not. It's just it's believable to life, but also I think it gives it a sense of, it makes you think a little bit more like, well, if this was the only time that they spent together, like, and that's how they have to leave it, that's like, those are kind of conversations that I feel like we face in life with relationships all the time. And it's important to have discussions about those kind of things and not just pretend like everything in life is tied up neatly in a bow, because it's not.
No.
And it's a way of making your readers in some ways feel seen, because there are a lot of things in life we're not going to get closure on. And, you know, how do we handle that? Do we, like, you know, and I think, again, like with anything else, fiction allows us a space to kind of work through that and think about it. That's my answer for that.
Yeah. I think it's also kind of fun to make your own ending as well in your head. Just kind of imagine how else it would go or something like that. Or what do you think happened?
Exactly. Yeah. I have to ask this question. Have you read Greenbone Saga yet?
No, I haven't, but I know that there are so many people who love that series. I do have the series on my shelf. I just haven't read them yet.
I can see that one being another one. I'm going to be very interested in your thoughts on the characters from that series.
Oh,
very
okay,
interested.
cool. Okay.
Because, you know, a lot of people talk about, and this is something we both love about Malazan, a lot of people talk about they like morally gray characters, and then but then when they're actually presented with morally gray characters, they usually don't like them.
Yeah.
Or their morally gray characters are just kind of reluctant heroes most of the time. They're not like truly morally gray characters.
There are some morally gray characters that people talk about that I'm like, this person is like a straight up villain. Like, what gray are we seeing here?
It's usually on one or the other side. Yeah. And I feel like Greenbone Saga has, like, when I think of actually morally gray characters, she's one of the first writers I think of with Greenbone Saga, because it's very much like some of the arcs in Malazan where you're like, I really like, I'm rooting for this character, and then they do something and you're like, I don't know what it says about me if I still like this character? Like, how do I, and like, it really makes you ask a lot of those moral questions, which I appreciated. So yeah, let's see. I'm behind on the chat again.
Sorry, it's okay.
I'm doing poor Francesca. I sent her all the questions, and I'm going horribly out of order for all of these. So we're just
I don't even have them in front of me. We're winging it.
We're winging it. It's this, you know, it's like we write our books. It's fine. Yes, Britton, correct on your question about which book we're talking about. Okay, I just wanted to make sure there were no other questions. Oh, Brian needs a choose your own adventure Malazan book. Turn to page 83. You died just terribly. Try to ascend. Turn to page 5. Love it.
That's a good way.
Okay, so I'm going to go all the way back to my first question, which I should have started the stream with, but I didn't because this is my channel and I can do what I want. What are you reading currently? Because this is something that I have read that you haven't finished yet. So I'm very excited. Yes.
I am reading The First Law by Joe Abercrombie. I finished book 1 and I am in the middle of book 2 currently before they are hanged. I was on vacation, so like I didn't read as much, but like I did bring the book with me and like I did like read a few chapters while I was out. But yeah, I'm in the middle of Before They Are Hanged right now.
And because I've been watching, you've done some fantastic shorts about where you're reacting to events of the First Law books as if it was a TV show.
Yeah.
And I love, one of the things that I think in an effort to like, I don't even know how to be more diplomatic or like, you know, not like give too much away or whatever it is. I think people are very reserved in their responses to books too much on social platforms. And I love that you are just like all in. When you think something about a character, we know about it. And I love that about your Instagram.
I don't know how to be any other way. I don't. Everybody knows my opinion on Giselle. Everybody knows it. But like, and everybody is like telling me as well, like, just wait. And I'm like, still waiting.
That is another phrase that I would love to ban from book communities in general. Just wait until. It's like, okay, but I'm not there yet. I'm here.
I'm not there yet. Currently, he's like scum.
Yeah.
But like, I am getting to the point in Before They Are Hanged where I am like reluctantly like, oh no.
Oh no, I'm gonna
kind of like him.
Yeah.
I'm reluctant in this. This is not willing.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not surprised in any way, shape, or form that you absolutely head over heels fell in love with Glokta in like 5 seconds. Yep, that checked out.
He's like one of my favorite characters I've ever read.
He's
love
pretty
this
great.
Man. I would do anything for him. I really would. I love him so much.
I think that's a very common Glokta reaction. And I think that's one of the things that like I appreciate. So I had a very roller coaster experience with the First Law trilogy. But one of the things that I always mark as a something that I really appreciated about Abercrombie's writing is talk about making people care about a morally great character.
Yes.
So well done. And
like right off the bat too.
Yeah. Like he literally walks down some stairs and you're like, I love you. I don't know why.
Like, the pity in my heart for this man like went from like 0 to 10. And then like he's like torturing someone and I'm like, it's okay, babe. I love you.
You do you.
You do you. Do you need anything? Like
can I get you a coffee?
Can I get you anything? Do you need a coffee or anything? Like, can I get you a wheelchair? What do you need, babe?
Probably. I mean, Glokta would also be like seething at the idea of pity as well, which makes it all the more fun.
I know, yeah. He's such an interesting character. I absolutely love the way like Abercrombie has written him and like the way that his brain works and how like he's just, I love his backstory, where he came from. Like, he's just an all around, by far the most interesting character in the series for me.
So besides Glocta, because I think that kind of answers Derry's question. Besides Glocta, is there a secondary character that is like kind of risen the ranks to be a favorite at this point?
Oh yeah, Logan.
Logan, yeah.
Definitely Logan, my golden retriever. I love him. He's just he's just a bundle of joy that sometimes likes to go berserk. Like
that is my other favorite thing about the way you talk about these very, like, I mean, Abercrombie's not really like straight up grimdark. He's not. But a little bit. You know, compared to a lot of the books I feel like are coming out after First Law, he doesn't go as dark as a lot of them.
Well,
but
I've read the Prince of Nothing series, so
yeah.
After that, everything is like, I feel like everything is fluffy.
Yeah. That is a series that I probably won't ever read for a lot of reasons.
I do not blame you. I do not actively recommend that series to people.
That's what I've heard from pretty much everyone.
I've read it so no one else has to. It's fine.
That's a YouTube video. I read Prince of Nothing, so you don't have to.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. But I mean, describing any First Law character as just a bundle of joy makes me incredibly happy.
It's just like, it's so crazy because he's written as like the savage barbarian, and he's like the most empathetic of all the characters. He is like the one who, he's one of those, you know how like they say, looks like a cinnamon roll but can kill you?
Yeah.
Like he's kind of he's like a mix. Like he is like, looks like a cinnamon roll, is actually a cinnamon roll. But he can also kill you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. You know, Doug, I don't know enough about, I'm so sorry. I don't know enough about the Punisher to answer this question. But that is, I think I agree with some of the comments going on in the chat about how morally gray is kind of an overused term. I think there's a lot of other ways to describe people in books that like are a little bit more specific in like the type of person they are. Like I see Glocta in some ways as a reluctant hero.
I would completely agree with that. Yeah.
You know, like he, and also
especially in the second book.
Yeah, everybody's a hero in their own story in some degree, unless it's Glocta, because he would not ever see himself as the hero in a story.
No.
Well, maybe in a weird, twisted way. No pun intended.
I think he would only think of it in a sarcastic way, in like a very like self-deprecating kind of way. He's like he would say, if I'm the hero, there's something really wrong happening.
Yeah, exactly. We've got some love for Giselle in the chat. I won't lie, I really enjoyed his character in the story as a whole. So if that hopefully is encouraging. And I love that you're at a point now where you're starting to like sort of tip over top of the roller coaster.
I think his writing is amazing. I have absolutely like no qualms with the way he's written. He is like, every time I was in his POV, I was engaged. He's just reprehensible.
Yeah, he's a brat.
He's just a spoiled brat that I couldn't stand. But like, I was supposed to feel like that. He's purposefully written like that. So like the author is like, Joe Abercrombie is doing his job, which is great. And I love that. And the fact that I'm slowly starting to change my mind. It's one of my favorite things when an author is able to get me to change my mind about a character that I either really loved or really hated, because that is such a feat.
It is.
So I really like Giselle's like trajectory because of that.
Yeah. He has a very dynamic arc in the story, which I appreciated. Derry had a similar experience with Glocta. I love you. Oh baby, your boss is terrible. Can I get you a heat pack? Yep. Glocta has no idea the fandom he has.
No, he does not.
Logan is a golden retriever who will Hulk out. It's kind of, I mean, Bruce Banner is kind of a golden retriever character also. So I definitely can see the comparison there for sure. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, essentially. He would be very upset if we called him a hero. Don't tell him we said it.
Yeah, he would not like that.
No. Okay, so I do want to go back to very briefly, because we've gone through Malazan, we've talked about Hobb a little bit, we've talked about First Law, which you're currently reading. What are, like, looking forward, what are some of the series that you in the future are most excited to get to beyond that?
I do. I know I just said that, like, I did not enjoy the Prince of Nothing series, but I really, really want to read the sequel series to it. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I really want to read the sequel series to it because I didn't decide that I liked that series until the very, very end, until like the last book where I was
That's like, commitment.
Okay, this is like actually so good.
Yeah.
So I really want to read the sequel series to The Prince of Nothing, although I know I'm probably going to regret it because a lot of people have told me that it's like
even
so
worse.
much worse. Yeah. Yeah. I know there's oh gosh, if I was at home, because currently I'm at my bestie's house watching her dogs. If I was at home, I would be able to look at I would have a visual representation of my shelves and I would be able to tell you what's on it and be able to tell you exactly what I wanted to read next. But I think because I have neglected my TBR so much from reading Malazan, that there's just so many like individual books that I've really wanted to get to. Like I really would like to read the Kenny J series.
Okay.
I've heard that that's so good. It's been on my TBR forever, and I know it's like this like camaraderie crew type of like series, and I'm so into that. I love that so much. And what else? There's other ones. I do want to read. Oh gosh, what is it called? I can't remember what it's called because I don't have it in front of me right now. I have
I'm here to ask hard questions.
Yeah, I know. This one should be the easiest one for me to answer, right? I obviously want to keep reading the Joe Abercrombie like First Law like world and everything. There's another. I can't remember.
All right. It's fine.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're totally fine. Derry has a great point too. TBRs are completely made up and can be changed out of I mean, that I had a whole stack of books that were my TBR for July, and I was like, I think I'm going to read House of Chains. Like,
yeah,
which
I know.
It's going to take a chunk out of my time for my TBR this month, and that's okay.
Yeah, I'm such a mood reader. Like I just go with whatever my mood feels like. I'll just stare at my shelf and go, okay, this one looks good. Let's read this one because I don't plan really anything out. So
right. Yeah. I do more now because of the channel, but I also have gotten to a point where like this month, I was just like, you know what? If I keep pushing myself away from the book I want to read right now, I'm going to be in a slump for like 3 months. And nobody wants that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I pick up a comfort read like House of Chains and then I'm fine.
So crazy that House of Chains is the comfort read.
Right? It's funny though, like people give me the craziest side eyes when they're like, what are your comfort reads? And I'm like, Dead House Gates and Red Rising, honestly. Like,
oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. So I do want to segue a little bit into talking about your book because we've talked a lot about, I feel like a lot of your influences and a lot of the stories that have left obviously a really big impact on you. But so Isla's Reach, talk to me about where like the first spark of an idea. Did you start with a character? Was there just a dragon? Was the prologue like the first scene? Where did that start?
Okay, so first I want to say that the title, I know a lot of people pronounce it as Isla, but it is pronounced Isla. It's totally okay. No. Literally, this is not said for you to feel bad at all. Everybody pronounces it as Isla. I pronounce it as Isla because Isla is the Spanish word for island, and that like plays into the story.
Yes.
So it's pronounced as Isla. I do not care whether people want to pronounce it as Isla. That's totally fine. But I just want to, like, if I'm going to be talking about the book, I will be like pronouncing it different. So I have to explain.
I don't think anyone's going to say as the author that you're pronouncing. Well, you know, book people are weird. Maybe they'll be like, you're pronouncing it wrong.
No, I've literally had people like message me and be like, you pronounce it this way. It's actually pronounced this way. And I'm like, I kind of wrote the book though.
I wrote the book though?
Like, I think I know how to pronounce it. If you, like, I don't care if you want to pronounce it this way, that's fine. But you're not going to change the way I should pronounce it.
I have this weird thing that I have to respond to every once in a while, where in the Bloodstones, the sun in the world is called Akatar, Aqatar. Now, I created this world like 13, 14 years ago. And then Sarah J. Maas published Akatar.
Yeah.
So I always tell everybody, is like, hey, this world has existed before the other Akatar.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. so I totally get it.
Yeah, so that's all. That's it. So tell me what your question was again. I'm so sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, just like where, when you first had the idea, like where did the book start? Was it a character, a scene? Like where was the initial spark of the story for you?
So almost every single one of my ideas for a book comes from a scene, and then I build the world around that scene.
Yeah.
And then I figure out the characters and kind of like I kind of map out, instead of like an actual physical journey, I map out more of an emotional one. And then I say to myself, how am I going to get them there emotionally? Because I really like to focus on the characters. I think of myself more as a character-driven author. And I want my characters to feel as real as possible. And so it is the everything surrounding them is kind of like background noise compared to like what they're actually like going through emotionally. And that's kind of how I figure out what I want them to go through.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it totally does. Yeah. I write very similarly, so I totally get that. Yeah. So one of the things that I loved about, okay, hold on, Isla's Reach. I did it the right way this time.
Yes,
I always found myself. Is I think prologues are one of those things that, like, obviously people on the social media platforms have arguments about prologues every other day. So I just kind of, whatever. But for me, like, I really appreciate an author who really just drops you into a scenario where if they can make me care about the characters in the first couple of pages, that's a huge deal for me. And I feel like with how many books I've read at this point, it's harder to do for me as a reader now. And when I say I was on the edge of my seat for that prologue, really, like I was like, I was so amazed at how quickly you pulled me into that world with the prologue. So like huge kudos, because I feel like that's an underrated skill set.
Thank you so much. That's so nice.
So, and there's like, this isn't, guys, this is a spoiler between the prologue and the first chapter, okay? There's a time jump, right? between the prologue and the first chapter. So like when you're setting up the story, does that kind of go into how your writing process works, where you had that idea of the scene and that was just the natural starting point? Or like, how do you decide where to start?
How do I decide where to start? Oh my gosh.
You know, because the story's so big and you're always like, well, you could start here or here or here, or you could do a prologue, or like, so how did you decide to open with that?
I definitely, how do I answer this?
Hard question, like I said.
Like how did I decide to write the prologue? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like, you know, deciding, you have this huge story in your head, and you have all of these kind of big picture things that you want to get to, but where was that? How did you decide that you were going to open with the scenes of the prologue? Like that's where you're going to start the story. Does that make more? Yeah, I didn't explain that very well the first time.
No, you're totally fine. So everything always comes back to Malazan because I mean,
Sure. Fair.
so I wrote Easeless Reach. I started writing Easeless Reach before I ever started Malazan. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, one of my favorite things about Malazan is how he just drops you into the world and doesn't explain
Mhm.
anything.
Mhm.
And that is how I like to read. It wasn't until that I read Erickson that it was perfected in my opinion,
Yeah.
where it was like my like fitted for me, I guess I could
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Whereas I have read other books, other fantasy series where I felt like, oh, I liked how they just kind of threw me in and didn't explain anything. And those were always like the ones that I loved so much because I had to kind of figure it out. And I liked how
Mhm.
the author trusted me as the reader
Yes.
to
Yeah.
continue on and to figure it out for myself. And so when I was reading Malazan, it was like, it was just, it spoke to my soul, my reader's
Yeah.
soul.
Yeah.
And so when I was writing the prologue, that's what I wanted to do is like, I want to write a book in the way that I would want to read it, which is I
Mhm.
want to be dropped in, don't explain anything
Mhm.
to me, and just like, I just want to feel like I am in this world
Mhm.
and I don't know what's happening.
Right.
I want to feel a part of it. I want to feel like I am there in the room with the characters. And so that's kind of the way that that's why I started it with the prologue like that. Where I just wanted to throw the reader in because
Mhm.
that's the way I like to that's the way I like to read.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but but yeah, so that's kind of the way that I decided to write the prologue.
Nice. Yeah. Well, and the other thing is kind of along with that, with you have, from what, if I'm remembering correctly, there's 3 POVs
Yes,
total. I was trying to remember if I was missing anybody, but I didn't think I was.
just three.
Just 3. So as you're developing the story and you've got the scenes in mind, like, what made those 3 characters the right characters to tell this story?
So
There's so many options.
yeah, so many. I wanted them to be flawed characters, all of
Yeah.
them. And I wanted them to each of my characters had an idea of what life was going to be like. And
Mhm.
it did not go as planned.
Yeah.
They had a plan, or they had this idea that they were doing the right thing, or that they were going to be doing the right thing, and then
Mhm.
it just completely shattered.
Right.
And I wanted to tell a story about like they're not necessarily out trying to save the day. They're
Mhm.
trying to save what is precious to them
Yeah. Yeah.
in whatever capacity that is. Whether that is for selfish reasons, whether that is for, you know, for another person, or they're literally just trying to survive to the next
Right.
day.
Right.
Um, and so I created, you know, these 3 characters where, you know, one had kind of like this great destiny that kind of did not go as planned, if you
Mhm.
could say that.
It's a bit of a chosen one subversion, maybe.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
chosen one subversion. Like you kind of,
Yeah.
this is what people have told me when they've read my book. I've had a few people like message me and say, I thought I knew where this was going, and I did
Mhm.
not.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, which made me feel good as the writer. I'm like, okay, cool. So I did my job there.
Right.
um, yeah, and you know, someone else doesn't know like their past or their future. They're just kind of existing and they don't really know
Mm.
what to do with themselves. And then the other
Mhm.
person thought they knew what their life was and then completely have it turned upside down with
Yeah.
like new information that they've learned. And everything that you think can go wrong goes
It
wrong.
does. Yes.
Goes wrong.
You can
um,
tell the influence of authors being willing to mess with and hurt their characters.
yeah. It's kind of funny. Like I don't. I don't realize, like, as I'm writing, like, what my characters are going through, I don't realize, like,
Yeah.
the absolute most that they're going through until somebody, like, tells me about it, and they're like, "Why would you do that?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah,
That's not normal, is it?
that's kind of messed up of me, wasn't it?" I don't real
Yeah.
I just don't realize it. I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
just desensitized or something or what, but, um, yeah, I really wanted to write 3 very flawed characters, and I also something that I learned, I don't know if this is like a rule of thumb or anything like that, but, like, when I took a creative writing course, and my professor was absolutely incredible, helped me
Nice.
so much when I was, like, first starting to, like, get back into, because I've written pretty much all of my life, but there was, like, a
Mm.
pretty long stint where, like, I didn't write, and was just getting back into it, and I had this professor that really, like, helped me get back into it.
Mm.
And, like, one of the pieces of advice that he was giving me, like, when you're writing a book with, like, multiple characters, is that you're gonna have opposing sides, and you
Right.
want to have a perspective in the opposing side. Um,
Yeah. Yep.
and so, like, you can have most of your characters on, your good side, quote unquote, if you
Right.
want, whether there are good or bad sides, but you want to have your opposing side, whatever that is, at least one, because you want to know
Yep.
what is going on that side. You want to know what's happening on that side. And so that was why I wrote one of the characters in mine. Like, um, I wanted to have that opposing side, but I also wanted to have that opposing side be very human. Um,
Right. Yep.
and so, like I said, I really wanted them to feel like human beings, like people that you could know today and that you would understand kind of like where they're coming from and
Mhm.
why they make the decisions that they do. You don't agree with them, but you kind of
Mhm.
get where they're coming
Yeah.
from. Um, I hope I succeeded in that, but
Yeah.
like that's what I tried to do. And that's what I try to do with all the characters that I ever write, is that I want them to feel like real people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like that note too about having that opposite side. And that's something that I think is, especially when you're writing a really epic story like that, where
Hmm.
you've got so many things happening, giving the reader a chance to see things from the opposite side, I think is a skill set in life that a lot of people like could use more of in general. And I think that's one of the beautiful things for me about fantasy is, you drop your reader into a world and you get them attached to a certain character and they're like, oh yeah, this character's right no matter what, and I'm like rooting for
Hmm.
them. And then you bring in the other side and they're like, okay.
Wait, what?
Like, stop
Yeah.
and think, and
Hmm.
that's really a cool thing to be able to do as an author, I think.
Hmm.
So yeah, I love that that was a focus for you, because that's something that I always love to read and write about, because I think that's an important part of our genre specifically, but about like any type of storytelling.
Agreed.
Peter wants to know, how would you describe the setting of your series?
The setting. Um, it is very naturey. I feel
Yes.
like it is very naturey. Like it kind of like you kind of go through all the seasons where you're up
Yeah.
in like you're with the snow and everything. Like it's very cold and icy, and then you kind of get to like these beautiful grass plains and rolling hills, and
Hmm.
then there's like rivers, and then I have a
Caves.
desert. Um, and yeah, like there's a like a crater and with boiling water that'll scald you.
Mhm.
Like it, yeah, like it is very naturey, I think.
Yeah, very nature based.
Yeah.
Yeah. And kind of along with that, one of the other questions I mentioned sort of at the beginning was, um, me being not as much of a dragon fanatic as I think the average fantasy fan. Um, Whenever dragons pop up in a story, I'm kind of just like, oh, okay, there's dragons, cool. There are a couple exceptions to that, obviously. um, but I I don't know what it was, but I think oftentimes one of the things I have a problem with dragons and any kind of like non-human character is sometimes I feel like authors don't know how to write them in a way that is non-human, if that makes sense. Like they just kind of feel like it's a dragon, but it just sounds and feels like a human in a big body, you know?
Yeah.
And I really liked first of all, you kind of took a different direction with dragons than in a lot of other stories, I feel like. And also the dragon presence in your story feels very inhuman, feels very like otherworldly isn't really the right word, but you know what I mean? Like they feel like dragons, which I appreciate a lot. So I wanted to know, like, as you're coming in, you're creating these characters and you're a character-driven writer, like what's the difference in writing dialogue and creating these human characters versus working with, okay, now I have a dragon. How do you write that?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just like I'm so sorry if you can hear a dog barking in the background. Remus.
Okay.
Hey, everything's fine. He just gets like so worked up about absolutely nothing. It's fine.
Sure. It's not fine. You don't understand.
I know. He's literally like going like this to me right now. You're fine. So sorry about that. Okay.
No, you're good.
So I think like because like I said before, like I really want my characters to feel really human. And so I guess just giving the dragon, like he's just like, because the dragons in my book they're very old and they like, I don't know, like it's like this personality difference. Like they're just very they have this just like immense presence, and I don't know, like and I wanted them to feel like big and otherworldly, and but with this particular dragon, like I also kind of wanted them to be like a little bit gentle at the same time, because humans are itty bitty, and it's also like it also has to do with the plot of the world as well. Like the circumstances surrounding this particular dragon is like kind of creates his personality. And I also didn't want, like I wanted to subvert expectations as well, where like, yes, dragons are a part of the story. Are they the full story though? No.
Yep.
They're not the full story. Like they are a part of the world and they are in the story, but there's more to it than just the dragons. And so I kind of wanted to take this expectation of like, we're gonna have this massive dragon book, right? And it's like, and I'm like, no. No.
Right. Well, and I think that's one of the things, like in a lot of dragon books, it feels like the dragons kind of take up the whole story. Like they're so larger than life, and I think you managed to really, like, in some ways make this massive like ancient beast feel very small in some ways, which I actually thought was really cool. Yeah, I thought that was very cool.
Oh, thank you so much. I just like, like it's so funny because it's like, like my main character like has a great destiny, doesn't go as planned. There are dragons in this book, but it's also not super like dragony. There are like animal companions, but definitely not in the way that you think.
Nope.
like it's just like I tried really hard to kind of like set these kind of expectations where you think you know what you're getting into, and then you get to like a specific chapter and you're like, oh nope, never mind. No, I don't. I have absolutely no idea what's happening.
Nope.
So
I have no idea where we're going, but sure.
Why not?
Why not? As you do.
If that makes any sense. I hope that answers.
Yeah, it does. Matt says setting equals biomes. Which ones? All of them. Yeah.
All of them. Yep.
Yeah, it is. Like, I know that was kind of in the background for me, and then as soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, it is very much in like heavily nature. Like everything's kind of infused with the nature aspects of the world.
Yeah, because a lot of the book is traveling. These characters are traveling from place to place, and they're doing so like on foot. So they're like trudging through like wilderness and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely like very nature centric, I would think. But like but I tried to make like the nature like part of the plot. So like tried to make it like come alive a little bit.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, before I get to my second question, I love the duology title of The Breaths and the Depths. I think that's very cool. So I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about naming the series, because I feel like naming a series is something we like never talk about, and it's kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like it kind of has to encompass the feeling of the series as a whole, and that was one that's always kind of stood out to me as, ooh, that's a really fun, unique, like fantasy series name, and I really like that. And obviously you don't have to spoil anything because it does kind of sort of have to do with some magic-y stuff in the story, but
yeah. So
sorry, question being, okay. My brain is like firing on about 3 cylinders today, so I apologize.
No worries.
the how, like, what did the name was just always there, or is that something that you kind of intentionally came up with? This is the vibe I want for the series.
So I actually didn't really come up with the title until I was almost done with the book.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought like there's a specific chapter where there is a story being told. And it is when I was writing this story that this man was like telling that I found my title, and I found like my series like title. And I felt like that was what, like, it's kind of like a love at first sight kind of thing, or what, however cliche thing you want to say. Like when you know it, you just kind of know it. And I was writing that scene, and I wrote those words, and I was like, oh, that's there.
There it is.
So yeah, that's kind of what it came up to be. And it really does, in my opinion, like really describe the series pretty perfect to me, especially like with the breadths and the depths, like the breadths being book 1 and then the depths being book 2. So yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that book 2 is going to be more emotionally damaging. It's called The Depths.
Yeah.
So anybody looking to start the series, just be aware.
Yeah. I kind of go real hard in this book too. I'm almost done with the first with
tell me about how book 2 is going. Tell me about that process.
I'm at like the beginning of the end of like my first draft, but like I've been editing as I go, so it's kind of like already gone through like drafts 2, 3, 4 as I've been writing. So I am hoping, fingers crossed, that it will be released at the end of this year, hopefully.
Cool. Okay, so actually coming up pretty soon then.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm at like the beginning of the end for like the end of the book. So I have about, I want to say 20 to 30 more like 1,000 words to write until I'm completely done with it. And then I just start kind of like polishing it. But it is I really like the way that it's shaping up. I don't have to change too much of it. Just like nitpicking things here and there, a few scenes that I want to change, some dialogue that I want to like switch up, maybe a chapter or two that I kind of want to like. It's kind of crazy how like you'll write a chapter that like is at the end of the book and you're like, this belongs in the beginning.
Yeah. I should have done that.
It's crazy how that happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, like doing that. So just like a few things like that. So, but it is coming along really nice. It's really good, really nice. But it is It is quite an emotional ride, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of authors talk about book 2 being kind of like it's a completely different writing experience than book 1.
Yeah.
And that oftentimes it's really challenging to write book 2, because in book 1 you're kind of like setting up your playground in a way. Like you're like, here you're introducing everything, and you're, you know, bringing the readers on the first part of the journey. And then book 2, like all of a sudden for you, especially because that's also the end of the duology, you have to tie everything in and make sure like everything, like the, you know, the big ending and all of that kind of stuff. So did you feel like that second book has been harder to write than book 1?
I actually think it's been easier.
Okay.
Just because I kind of like, I don't know, I felt like with book 1, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was
Mm-hmm.
really pantsing that one.
Yeah.
This one, I have a little bit more planned out,
Sure.
just because I've known the ending for so long,
Mm-hmm.
um, that I feel like it's a little bit easier for me to write how to get to these characters to the ending, because I've been
Right.
thinking about it for so long.
Yeah.
Um, and I kind of like learned from the mistakes that I made in book 1. Well, not like mistakes, but like the pitfalls that I would get when I was like having writer's block, or you know, I couldn't get around a certain plot. I feel like I still struggle with that, but I feel like I struggled less with that in book 2.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Um, and uh, it's just been, I don't know, I feel like I've had more fun writing book 2 than I did with book
Yeah.
1.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, probably feel you kind of have your footing a little bit more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. So do you have, so you've got, you kind of all in on book 2. It's coming out potentially later this year.
Potentially, I'm
And
hoping, yes.
yeah, so do you have like, are you kind of taking it one series at a time, or do you already have like where you're going to go after that?
So I do already have a book that I want to write after. It would be just a
Okay.
standalone book.
Okay.
Um, and I've already written the first chapter of it.
Nice.
It's just kind of
Yeah.
sitting on my
Percolating.
desktop currently. Yeah, just brewing.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I do already like have the world built. I have some of the
Nice.
characters and everything. I already know like the perspective that I want to be in. It's going to be very different than
Okay.
the breadths and depths. Like the breadths and depths is like multi POV, whereas in the book that I want to write next is just one POV, and it's
Hmm.
just going to be a standalone. And it's one that I've been wanting to write for a while, but like I
Nice.
said, I just have the first chapter written so far. But that's the
Yeah.
one that I want to write right after I'm done with book 2.
Okay. Very cool. Derry wants to know, let's see. Derry's here for emotional damage. Love to hear it. As authors, we love that.
Yes.
It's sad but true, Derry. It's very true. We're all masochists here on BookTube.
Yep. 100%.
But she wanted to know, I know Robin Hobb's characters live independently in her head. Is that always the case for authors? Are they off doing stuff you know about but won't include in a book?
Like, are they having like their own side quests without me
Yeah,
knowing?
probably. Yeah, I think like I mean, I can't speak for you, but I would imagine that's similar where like they're always in my head. Like they're just
Yeah.
there. They're like real people to me.
Mhm.
Um
100%, yeah.
yeah,
I think about
I
them
don't
all
see
the
my characters
time.
as fictional.
Yeah, no, I think about them all the time. Like, I'll be at
Yeah.
work and there's like a piece of dialogue that just
Yeah.
like burrows its way into my head where I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I need to write this in this scene." And you know, I'll grab my phone real quick and write it down, or like I'm at the grocery store and I'm like, "Oh, I would like to add this into this scene," or what, like it's
Mm-hmm.
constantly on my mind always. I'm always thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. I feel like too, that's one of the reasons why, like for me at least, because I write in very different subgenres, with very different character tones. And to me, that it's not that hard to switch. It's hard from a technical standpoint to switch between them, but from a character standpoint, because they're so real and so vibrant, it's like when I jump back into Cold Silver, I'm in Hunter's POV. I can hear her voice in my head. I can, you know, jump back into her tone really easily. And now going back to Legends of the Bruhai, I open the pages and I immediately am back, and I have that tone and style in my head again. So I think it speaks to really being close to and knowing your characters really, really well.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important as a writer.
Agreed.
So yeah. Even if they do stuff that doesn't make it into the book, which, yeah, there have been some side quests in my head where I'm like, I wonder if like Sindri did this thing over here, and I don't think that needs to go in the book, but it happened.
Yeah, there are some. I've fallen victim of writing an entire chapter that was not necessary for the book, and I had to delete the entire thing and lost like 10,000 words.
It's so painful.
It hurts every time.
Yeah. It's not fun, especially when you see your word count drop and you're just like, ugh.
Yeah. Yep.
Ouch.
Yep. It hurts so much.
Thanks, Derry. Yes, that's my baby. I feel like if you're not head over heels in love with your own series, like, why bother? You know what I mean? Like,
I know. Yeah.
You should be the first person to love it.
Exactly.
Derry says, yep, that's the kind of brain side quest I've wondered about. Yeah, I have folders on my computer. I save all the chapters because you never know.
Yeah.
But yep, we just put them in the trunk and nobody knows.
They're for us only. They're the alternate happy endings.
Exactly. So the last kind of segue I wanted to do really quick is mostly for my benefit, because I am clueless when it comes to Instagram, and I love your Instagram feed so much. It's so pretty, and I'm always jealous of people that have this like really cool theme on their page, and like all their pictures look super cohesive and pretty. And so tell me about like jumping wildly to a different side of content creation. Like, how do you decide on an aesthetic? I hate that word, but how do you decide on an aesthetic for your page? And like, how do you know what to post? Like, I'm such a newbie at Instagram.
I literally just do what I want. Like, I don't like I kind of like cater it to my personality, where like I really like dark and grim books that really, you know, tug at the heartstrings, and that don't necessarily have happy endings. So my feed is a little bit like on like a darker like color scheme, just because I just like that. And I just like, and I'm like posting about Malazan like almost all the time. Like there's hardly a day when I'm not posting about Malazan. People are probably very sick of it who are following me, but I've been trying to like post other like books and stuff too, but like I kind of like look at what other people are posting too, and like because sometimes they'll do like challenges or whatever, you know, like a sky stack or something, or like an edges stack, and I'm like, oh, that looks pretty, I want to try that. And so like I'll do like a stack like that. But like most of the time it's just kind of like books that I feel like I want to share and I want to talk about, and I want to know other people's opinions on it and everything, because when I'm reading a book, everybody is reading the book with me, because I have to share my thoughts, and
great.
I have to buddy read with everyone, which is why I post like my little like story reactions and stuff too, because I really like I like it when people respond to it and like tell me what they think, and how they find my reactions funny or whatever. But like I just kind of do what I like, and I don't pay attention really to like follower count or anything like that. I pay attention to the people that I make friends, and people who like to talk about books with me and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, it looks beautiful. So congrats. Cause
Thank you.
I understand the work that goes into some kind of a coherent content creation channel. So I appreciate that a lot. And I'm always like scrolling through your feed like, wow, this is just so pretty.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm you're inspiring me. It's Instagram is my next, like, I'm gonna tackle this, and I'm gonna actually learn how to Instagram.
Awesome.
So you're my inspiration at this point.
That's so nice. It's just be chaotic.
Perfect.
That's what I do. I'm just chaotic.
Yeah, I love that. That's gonna work for me too, probably. I mean, I do that even on my channel too. It's like, I don't know, guys. We can try for some consistency in terms of content, but really I'm just posting what I want to talk about. So,
yeah.
But I think people like that too. I think there's a genuineness to that people are drawn to, because that's, I'm not trying to put anything that isn't me out there. And like for you with Instagram, same thing. It's like, yeah, that's just how I am as a person.
Yeah.
So, okay. Final question.
Okay.
When I went through your Instagram and I scrolled all the way to the bottom,
all the way
pictures, because usually I go to people's YouTube channels and I look at their oldest videos. So I went to your Instagram and I went all the way to the bottom. And one of your earliest posts on Instagram talks about one of my favorite classic authors, Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, yes.
So I have to ask, what is your favorite Poe piece?
The Fall of the House of Usher.
Nice. Excellent choice. Okay.
Yeah, that one's my favorite.
Mine is The Mask of the Red Death.
Oh, that's such a good one. Oh, that's a great one. Yeah.
That's a good one. I want to write an entire epic fantasy based on that story someday.
That would be so cool.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I've literally always been drawn to the grim and the dark.
Yeah. But I was going to say, when I saw that, I was like, this honestly on brand. This
on brand. Yeah.
On brand.
I did like so many school projects on.
Nice.
Oh, when I was a kid, like everyone's like doing like Percy Jackson or Harry Potter or whatever, and here I am with like Poe.
I love it. I love that. Yeah. I love that. You can always, like, I used to teach young writers conferences, and there's always like one kid in the classroom. There's always one that's just, you can tell they're a writer from like day one, and they walk in and like, I remember one kid came in, and this was in like the mid 2000s. And he came in suspenders and a flat hat at like age 10. And when I had everybody introduce themselves, and he was like, my name is Robert. And I was like, you, sir, are a writer.
And you can just see his entire future.
Yeah. So I can imagine, like, as a teacher, like, you've got all these Percy Jackson, and nothing wrong with Percy Jackson. Like, everybody that loves Percy Jackson, that's awesome. But then there's Francesca with like, I wrote about Poe.
Yeah,
like that one. Yep, that one right there.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Well, is there anything that you want to shout out again for anybody who's in the chat or anybody who's watching the replay? Go down in the description box below, and there is a link to Francesca's card with all of her links to her socials and her book and all of the things. Is there anything else that you want to shout out to anybody or let us know that you've got coming up?
No, that's pretty much it. Most of my life is just like reading and writing book too. So hopefully I can get that out by the end of this year. Fingers crossed, because I would love for that to be out in the world so I can move on to the next thing, because I really want to write other things.
You're so ready. Yeah,
I'm so ready to move on and to write other stuff. So that's kind of like my whole thing right now. But yeah, that's kind of it.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for sharing, for all of the craziness that we've been through to get here.
I know.
And I'm sure you are so ready to get some rest after your crazy flights and all sorts of things and vacation. And I hope your sunburn gets better.
I know, my poor face.
Yeah, we were there a few days ago, so I commiserate.
Oh, yeah.
But thank you for jumping on and chatting with me this evening.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was an amazing chat.
Good.
Totally really worth the wait.
Yeah, 100%. I was like, man, if we just bomb this now that we've waited so long to get here, it's gonna be awful. Derry said she's already sent a request on Goodreads. Yeah, you guys will have to talk Hobb, because Derry will talk Hobb with you all day, every day.
Awesome.
She's amazing. So chat, thank you guys so much for always joining us and having awesome comments to share in the chat. And if you're watching the replay, we love you guys too. And yeah, check out all of Francesca's stuff. And I hope you guys are having a great week and that you're reading some 5-star reads. I always do this to the wrong camera now. And then we'll see you in the next video. Good night, everybody.
Bye.